Using a grid to blow something up goes back, at least to the Egyptians. But the reason that I used it, I think, goes back to my learning disabilities. And when I was growing up in the 40s and 50s, nobody knew from learning disabilities or dyslexia, you were just dumb and lazy. I'm often overwhelmed by the whole, and I found that if I break things down into small bite-sized pieces, this big overwhelming problem becomes much more solvable. You solve this little piece and then that little piece. As we progress, you'll see those squares get larger and larger to the point they're 3.5 inches square, which allows for many more colors in each square, and then the opportunity for them to run together and connect with something else. Sometimes they have a diagonal axis, and sometimes they have a horizontal vertical axis, and sometimes they have a dark center with light around it, or a light center with dark around that, or they run together to make a hot dog shape, or they stay a donut, or they become a sock shape, or whatever. So the pictorial syntax is the same as writing. You develop a vocabulary, and each painting gets off the ground with a kind of color world that you're dealing with, a kind of range of colors that you're using, plus this vocabulary that you're evolving in the very act of making this painting. And each one is really different in terms of that vocabulary. People look at these things, and they ask me if I go back and forth, and I in fact don't. I'm never any further away than arm's length. And so they say, well, how can you make these decisions? And the analogy that I use, a composer going into a room by himself or herself to score a piece with no musical instruments or no musicians, and simply writing notes and assigning this note to the oboe, and this note to the bassoon, and this note to the French horn, and from years of experience know what the resultant chord will sound like of those notes being played at the same time. And I'm making the visual equivalent of a musical chord. I'm putting 4 or 5 or 6 colors together that from years of experience I will know what those read like from a distance. So it's not necessary for me to go back and forth. That doesn't mean that I could necessarily mix all those colors ahead of time and tell you those 5 colors will do it. What I'm always doing is getting it a little bit closer. Now what do I need? I get something else.